All right. Hello, everybody. Uh, this is the October grants webinar. I'm John Fulton, grant specialist in the grants office. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Heritage Partnership grants. They come up once a year. The deadline's always in January, which I'll repeat a couple times as we go through this. And it's the Heritage Partnership program is a bit of a stepchild. It doesn't always get as many applications as say the Legacy Grants program, um, but it's still a good program, and the money is real, and the mission of it is just a bit different, which I'll be talking about. All right. So, so why should you want a partnership grant? And what we're seeing since March, obviously, is that the COVID-19 situation has been hard on museums and libraries and other cultural institutions, and a lot of the ongoing grants are we're especially in throughout the spring, they were very concerned about finishing their grants, and quite a number weren't able to because of restrictions on access, especially to research and to staff. Uh, there's things we can do to help with existing grants, but what seems like an opportunity uh, to me especially is partnership grants they're designed to help organizations, at least two organizations, come together and propose a solution to a problem that they see. And it just seems like the situation we're in now with COVID and with the economic problems that are coming along with it, that it might be a good time for organizations to plan what they can do to help each other and to do the things, to continue to do the things that they want to do and that are in their mission. And the partnership money is uh, is, uh, is is a good solution to planning, especially. Um, so it's a good program because it can provide funds to coordinate work in Minnesota history. So you know if the partners who come together to do the partnership grant, if they would like to become a more formal partnership, the money can help them to do that. So create those networks of supporting organizations, and provide funds to plan for and prepare for things that are going to help your survival as an organization, as a and then uh, and it always has been about organizations telling us what do they see coming down the pike, what do they see that they need to deal with, that they want to deal with, but for whatever reason have not to. It's in a partnership grant a way of approaching that question: what do you want to do about that thing that you see coming that you want to do? Uh, and so, yeah, it seems to me that the Heritage Partnership grants could be more useful this round. Uh, and you know, uh, I'm really curious what anyone who's attending um, sees coming up. Like if they are worried about the COVID situation, if they do have ideas about what might work, um, especially when we get to questions, I'd be really interested to hear about any of that. And if you want to put comments in the chat over on the right side, uh, there's a number of staff who are attending, and they might be able to answer you directly, or um, so so who might be interested in the partnerships right now? Obviously, organizations that know about and perhaps have already had uh, heritage partnership programs, and they might have plans already for things they were going to do. But I think also another opportunity this time is that there was a number of large grants that that had sort of a partnership aspect to them. There were partners working on whatever that large legacy grant intended to do, and once those groups hear about whether they got their large grant or not, there's going to be time for them to possibly rewrite that grant as more of a partnership grant. And so organizations that that would like to try to do something like that, we'd be happy to help discuss how that might be done, because as I'll get to, the categories for the partnership grants are different than for the legacy grant, but especially if the intention of the partnership is to plan something or to test it out and see if something might work, a new method or a new approach. The partnerships can be good for that. So again, it's you don't have to be concerned about the COVID crisis to to apply for a partnership. So yeah, I mean, 2020 is almost over now. It will be by the time get applications in, pre-apps in January. And since planning is always something that the Heritage Partnership grants are good for, it seems like this this time period when we're all trying to figure out what to do about this situation, using partnership grants to do some planning, to help find a path through whatever it is you're facing. It could be should be a good fit for this, for where we're at now. And so there's a lot of issues that I think museums and other organizations are looking at now, and I list some of them now. But obviously, so much of what we're doing now, how people are working at our institutions, how we are reaching out to audiences, has a lot to do with digital services now. And again, it's a good time to ask, what's missing in an organization's digital services. What do they want to do? And even if you don't have a solution, a partnership could be put together to study, capabilities at the organization, and ask, what could be better? How can we improve this? Is there something we can try? And again, even if you don't have the solution when you apply, the grant could be about trying to figure out what would be the best, most effective solution for your location. Obviously the example we have, from this year, the Wells Fargo Museum in Minneapolis was temporarily closed starting in March, I believe. But Wells Fargo has decided to close it permanently, and there hasn't been a lot of organizations that I've heard of, museums especially, that have closed in Minnesota, and that's good. And we certainly don't want that to happen. But the Wells Fargo Museum is a good object lesson about what we don't want to see happen to our organizations. All right, so I'll get to all the categories a bit later. First, I wanted to run through some examples of some projects that have been done through partnerships that are, they were good. They were good programs, and they are, kind of relevant to showing what can happen at this time. And so, an example for digital solutions planning was Minnesota Alliance of Local History Museums. They're an existing, partnership. I don't know if partnership actually captures everything that they're about, but they worked with a number of historical societies around the state, and to look at what new open source collections management software could possibly replace Past Perfect, because there is concern in the field that some of the technical changes to Past Perfect would lead to it not being updated, and at some point being, less usable, eventually unusable. And and what was interesting about this program, about what MOM did, and how they worked with these other museums, is that they didn't wait to see what's going to happen with Past Perfect, because it's a business. They're going to try to do right by their customers, but just spending a lot of time just waiting and not knowing can be frustrating. And if the answer that came after so many years from Past Perfect is that there really is no solution and they're going to discontinue it, it'd be a lot of lost time trying to find a replacement. So these partners got together and started trying out a new CMS. They did a lot of research to find out which would be the best CMS that would work, and then they implemented, the pilot tests of it, and are still continuing to work with it. And it's, now there are legacy grants that are being awarded to help, even more organizations try out the new CMS that's available. So that was very helpful and successful. And one that, example of creating an online presence so as to, remain relevant. A whole area of organizations can remain relevant, even if physical visitors aren't really allowed. Was the St. Olaf College was the applicant, but it was an effort by St. Olaf, Northfield Historical Society, and Carleton College, and to develop the Northfield Historical, which was a mobile application to make it easy to find and visit and otherwise find out about all the historical locations in the area. um, it occurs to us that, historic tourism is a way that people can continue to develop um, visibility and provide content, uh, in an area that is, it's more dispersed. So it's not necessarily about, people, audience, visiting the institution themselves, but, if this work is done, if the information is out there, uh, to enable historic tourism in an area, um, that seems like it could be very helpful in the next year or two. And City of Appleton, uh, did a lot of work with the partnership grant to develop um, develop this project to uh, to do a number of things, but one big part of it was to plan out uh, very detailed maps all along the Minnesota River and along the scenic byway that goes along the river. And I think this is we have a partnership this is still open, but I think it provides an example of what some organizations might want to do if they find that some of the potential partners are say coming up short when they do fundraising to try and replace um, any funds that were coming in compared to last year. And so the Wayzata Historical Society uh, it actually doesn't exist in the form yet that they want to do, but all the organizations in the Lake Minnetonka area, most of them are quite small, but they're well connected to each other already, and they've talked for years about whether they should, merge or cooperate in some obvious way, and and their main concern was volunteers. They, all the nearby organizations, historical societies, tend to compete for volunteers, and they're not always as many of them as these organizations need. And so so now they are, with some help, trying to figure out if a merger is a good idea. And I'll be interested to see what they come up with in the end. All right. So to talk, more about the partnership categories. So there's only 4 categories for partnership grants, and partnership development and planning is, is there for those groups that are already partners, but they want to make it, more formal, or there's something that they want to take on that they haven't yet and want to explore that organizationally. Have a number of meetings throughout the year, get a consultant involved who can help them to organize in the way that they would like. And
Don't leave. We're still here. So anybody have any questions that they want to post in the chat, or do you want to unmute yourself and ask questions?
Might be a good time to just ask in the chat feature too how people heard about it.
Oh, that's great. And I can turn on my camera too, so you can see me. Hello, everybody. Yeah, if you have questions, but this is a good time. We're curious about how you heard about us, how you heard of, not us personally, but how you heard about the webinar. So if you would post that in the chat about where you heard about this webinar, that will really help us with our efforts in the future of what's popular. You know, is it the local history, the LHN, the local history news, e-newsletter? Is it we send out an email blast to some people? So maybe it's that. Maybe it's word of mouth. Maybe it's Todd. Maybe Todd is the key to everything. So thank you, Luann. LHN, always so popular. I kind of figured that's going to be the winner. Newsletter. All right. The newsletter is pulling out. Oh, an email. Oh, good. Thanks, Tom. I was wondering about my emails. LHN. All right. Email. LHN. Good. There's a good combination. So we shouldn't stop putting stuff in the information in the LHN is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing, Ted?
Shoot.
Yeah,
Strike out the LA.
We were gonna try to retire it, but no, we got to keep it. So, were you gonna say something else, Todd?
Well, I was gonna say, I assume that the email list that you sort of sent out to were people that had applied in the past or expressed some interest. And I'm just in tap dancing mode with the rest of us here, but maybe those that have applied in the past, I want to talk about what their projects and partnerships were that they were thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a combination of just some handy work in our database, the grant portal, and I just pulled out anybody that seemed to be interested in partnering in some kind of fashion, whether that be they've applied for the Heritage Partnership Program in the past, or they came in potentially for the Legacy Program and had done some thinking about partners as well. So that is how I pulled the list. So. I see people put it in the chat, and I don't know if there's questions in there. No, this is good. Thank you for that impromptu poll of where you heard from us about. Awesome. If there isn't any questions, we can definitely talk about when the partnerships, kind of the time frame for partnerships and when it's going to start up here. So we can, if you have a pen, make sure you have a pen, piece of paper handy, and I can post our website information as well. So the Heritage Partnership Program grants, the next round, the pre-application, which is mandatory, and it should be a draft of your final application. That is due on Friday, January 22nd of 2021. So that's what John was talking about, as the end of calendar year 2020 is coming. You'll be applying in calendar year 2021. So what's going to happen going forward when you're thinking about that? Those will come into our office, and then the grants office staff reads them and provides you with some comments to help strengthen your application. And then we'll get those back to you in a couple weeks. And then after that, you have until March 6th to get the final application into us. And then they again are reviewed by our office, and our comments and your application is forwarded to the grants review committee. So that's kind of some dates to throw out at you. And I will post the website to where those dates live for the Heritage Partnership grant. I'm sure you've all checked it out. So probably not new to you, but just in case you haven't checked it out, there it is. Oh, Todd, you stinker. Todd got it in before me, and so he is the winner, and things like that. Anything else that Lake of the Woods, let me see. I see that you have a question. Maybe you mentioned this. Does it matter if we have a grant out like the Heritage Cultural Grant Program? It doesn't matter, except for a couple situations. One is the grants can't be dependent upon each other. So if you, for instance, are creating, and I'm going to use more of a, well, I can use this one too for partnerships. So if you come in and ask for a partnership grants to create your partnership and design your partnership, and then you want, from that partnership, you want to do some projects together, whatever that would be, an exhibit or whatever that would be. Your partnership grant would have to be closed out before you would do any projects within the capacity of that newly created partnership, if that makes sense. And then the other scenario is if you have an outstanding final report with us, then you would not be eligible to apply for any of the grant programs until you satisfy that final report. But other than that, it's really dependent upon your capacity to handle the number of grants that you're applying for. So it's to me like that's more of your evaluation of, can I have 5 grants at one time open? I know I can't, but maybe other people can handle more than 1 or 2, but we don't say that you can't have more than 1 or more than 2 or anything like that. It's really your capacity. And as long as you meet those other criteria, you're good to go. Great question. Great question. Thank you.
Carolyn, can I jump in really quickly? This is Melinda.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Just to kind of piggyback on your answer, if you have a grant open and it's overdue, you cannot apply. But if they have a current grant that they're still working on, that is fine, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't make that clarification. So if you have,
it doesn't have to be just outstanding. If it's overdue and outstanding, then you cannot apply.
Yeah. And the fastest way to make sure that that's not happening is to contact Melinda.
Yes.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's true. It is
right.
true.
Or you have access to all the dates within the grant portal. So you logging in and seeing the grant portal and looking at all your milestone and final report dates would help as well. But sometimes just shooting us an email it can be much faster too, especially if you're in the throes of writing an application. Thanks, Todd. Yep, Todd posted our generic email, which is grants with an S at mnhs.org for those that are on the phone. I might have access to the slideshow. Let me see if I can find it. Any of my colleagues have anything else to say about partnerships at this moment while I'm looking real quick? Todd, you got something on your mind there?
Well, I'm going to sort of show my ignorance about some partnership program aspects, but hey, we're all being very human here as we're tap dancing anyway. So let me put myself out there. The dollar amount that one can apply for to the partnership grant program, is it has to be more than $10,000, or is it, am I misremembering that?
No, that's correct. It has to be more than $10,000. So it has to be like we consider that a large request. So it has to be more than $10,000.
And generally speaking, there's, I mean, they can apply for essentially the whole pot of money. There's no limit on it, except we can only grant out the number of dollars that are available. But how much money is the program funded for in the upcoming round?
Yeah, there should be about $390,000 available to award.
And I see a couple of questions have come in. There's one from Ellen up at Lake of the Woods County Historical Society. Is there a public place to see heritage grants like Legacy? You went through a few examples. So John obviously shared some examples. Is there a list of them available?
Yes, there is a list available on the state LCC website. And I can post that. If you're looking for more of like the actual application, I think if you're interested in something very specific, you would want to shoot an email to the grants box and ask to look at a sample of something that, if you're looking about shared resources, or you were interested in one of the applications that were presented on today, you could just shoot an email to the grants box.
So if somebody saw something on that list that felt like a good fit for them, but they want to know more, they could contact us at grants@mnhs.org
Absolutely.
to see more about what was in that application, and probably just talk to somebody that might have reviewed it or have some other help for them.
Yeah, or you could even ask us for information about, that the project director, and you I'm sure they would be happy to talk about their grant and how successful it was, and give you some tips on what they did when they applied. So it could be us in the grants office helping you with that and giving you some basic information, but it might be more beneficial sometimes that you actually talk to the grantee who went through the process that you're going to be going through.
And then we got 2 questions from Rebecca at Anoka County Historical Society. First one is, partnerships can be with municipalities, correct?
Correct.
All right. And I think maybe just to sort of pause on that. So like it's one applicant, one organization that is the applicant, but all of the partners have to be eligible applicants. And those would be 501c3 organizations, units of local government, cities, counties, etc., educational institutions, and federally recognized tribes in Minnesota.
Brilliant. Thank you,
All
Todd.
right. And then she's got another question here. Can the money granted be used to pay for current staff time given the COVID situation? I know it's not typically okay, but is this an exception?
Off the top of my head, no. We still have to abide by supplant rules that are outlined for us in the amendment. But does it hurt to ask? No. I mean, it kind of pushes us to maybe push and find if there's a response for that, more of the COVID situation, and if something is outlined in a different statute that counters that or something like that. So I know that's a wishy-washy answer, but I would say if it's very important to you, you should put it in the application and let us respond to it accordingly, especially in the pre-apps.
And just to add to that, so if staff is part-time, they could be brought up to full-time hours to work on, work on the grant. So there's that.
Yeah, good point, John. That's a very good point. Like if for some reason, and I didn't take it in that aspect, but if for some reason COVID affected their staffing level, they had to go down to part-time, you definitely could use the grant to bring them up to past that part-time level that they're at now. Yeah. So I'm glad you're back, John. Are you ready to present again?
Yes. So just to look at the categories that the Heritage Partnership grants have. There's only 4 categories for the partnership grants, and they basically fall into 2 groups, and one is the partnership development and planning. So that's especially helpful if it's a new partnership. The partners are coming together and they want to formalize whatever it is they want to do. It's not necessary that you know precisely what your end result is going to be to do a partnership development and planning grant, but you need to know what it is you're coming together for and what you're trying to accomplish. And a lot of times when you're building a partnership, what you're doing is getting that formal documentation together, like a memo of understanding and things like that. And you're articulating your plans for whatever it is you're trying to do. And then it seems like all grants should have some degree of partnership planning. Even for an existing partnership, whatever it is you're doing is going to be novel in some way. So there's probably some need to make sure that all the partners are benefiting substantially from the funds, from what it is you're coming together to do. The other three categories are similar. The shared workforce, shared resources, and shared services. And they're similar in that you're getting funds to develop some part of the partnership. But, it's just the emphasis is different. So workforce, obviously the emphasis is you're trying to get people in some sense to help with the partnership. The resources is, making, items available that, are going to help the partnership do what they're doing. And then the services is, making the plans and starting to, test services that you want to try that maybe you've never tried before. Oh, so just to run through some more specific ideas about shared services here. Developing a regional or community-based team to streamline disaster response efforts, historic properties, public records, museum collections, archives. That, I mean, that's, that would be useful at any time to plan that out if it doesn't exist. A lot of organizations are prepared to help each other. In the case of flood, especially, we've seen that many times in the state. But, it might be good to, have a plan in place so that, it's not so ad hoc when you have your reaction to whatever happens. And then combining services for collections, especially, if you're going to digitize and make available, different partners, resources, it's something that might come in handy in the next year or two if access to our locations continues to be iffy. Shared workforce examples, I just have really one here. There's so many possible, and really shared workforce is the category that we get the most applications and awards for in the partnership program. But, to my mind, it seems like it might be more difficult to get shared workforce in the near future. And so, this idea of hiring a site manager for multiple locations, in this case, to forge a heritage tourism destination, that maybe won't be what's happening exactly in the next couple of years, but the idea of having someone who can, maintain, partner organizations when access to buildings is difficult is something that might be useful. And in shared resources, again, this was the category. It seems like it might be most useful, responding to COVID and worrying about COVID. And again, planning, developing, and implementing digital solutions for, for uniting resources, providing access, all those things that, you might want to do at this time. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. And, which partners are involved would help, to determine what it is you want to do and, how much of it you could do at any one time. And partnership development and planning. This is just some things that have been tried already. But again, it's a category that, if you're going to develop a strategic plan for the near future, for the next 5 years, whether it's, responding to disasters or, whether it's just responding to, issues you've had with your organizations for years. This is the category that would probably be most helpful for doing that planning. And yeah, so to cover a few more of the basics of the program, the deadline should be January 22nd of 2021. Requests for these are always above $10,000. And we usually have at least $360,000 available each round. I think there's a bit more than that available for this round coming up. It usually ends up being about 4 to 6 different grants that are funded out of that amount. But if we get a good number of mid-sized grants, then it could be quite a bit more this time. And just to go through again, just the high points of partnership grants. So you are identifying that need, that joint need that you want to address. You're coming up with a plan, and you may not know where that plan leads exactly, especially if you're starting with a partnership development category grant. But knowing what it is you're trying to address and how you're going to address it is what you are going to want to put into the application. Of course, you'll need an account with the grants portal to be able to start an application. Again, the deadline should be January 22nd next year. And people will hear about awards in April of 2021. And partnerships usually get a year to do their work. And the start date tends to be June 1st, 2021 in this case, and then your end date would be in June of 2022. Reports and products, of course, there's always reporting with grants, especially larger grants. There can be milestones and so forth that would trigger payments throughout the grant period. Products are not so clear cut with partnership grants, and that is one of the challenges of the application, is just articulating to us what product, what is being developed by this partnership grant that's going to benefit all the partners, and that is something that can be delivered at the end of the grant period. And yeah, it sounds like you've been asking quite a few questions, and that's great. If you've got more, now's a good time to talk about them, query them, and then just there's the website for the partnership grants, and then of course the grant portal, which when you need it, that's where it will be. And then there's my contact. If anybody wants to follow up on anything, that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Hey, John, one of the questions that came up in the break was
Yeah.
about eligible partners, and we answered a specific question about it, but maybe you could talk a little bit about, like, we talked in that answer about how it's one organization that is applying, although there are multiple partners. But how should they document or tell us who the partners are and that?
There's there's near the top of the application, there's a field to list the names of who the partners are. And as you're discussing, what your program is going to be, you can talk about what each of the partners will be doing, who they are, and how they're going to be involved. And there is a what's called the signature authority form. And so for the partners that are definitely going to be involved, they will need to sign the signature authority form, which just allows the lead partner, whoever is sending in the actual application, to act in their name, at least as far as the application is concerned. So that's like 3 ways. And, and of course, this is one program where we expect a number of questions because there's some flexibility with the program. It's, if people want to discuss who can be, one of the partners, we're happy to talk about that.
Hey, John, are you able to read the comments?
Let me back off. I will see if I can.
There's a couple of questions there. I'd read them to you if you wanted, but if you want to back out of the presentation.
I do. Okay, so will we be able to access the recording of the webinar? Yes. Yes, and I would like to get this one posted soon so that people are thinking about, we're thinking about applying in January, can look at this again or share it with the potential partner. I would like to have it available by mid-November. I'll admit that I'm somewhat backed up on some of the webinars and getting them posted. So if it comes up earlier, that would be great. And that's what I'll say. I'm hoping that within 3 weeks or so, this will be up along with several others. And so there was a question about Chamber being a partner, and Carolyn answered that. Yes, Chamber of Commerce can't be. They are a different kind of nonprofit, but cities certainly can be, counties and so forth. So it seems like a lot of times chambers are trying to represent especially tourism or business interests for the city. So, it's possible that some of the same people might work for the city and might be able to convince the city to be a partner. So you're asking, do all the partners need to be 501c3s? They don't. If they're nonprofits, they have to be 501c3s. But obviously, there's state and local government departments in cities, counties, and so forth can all be partners. They're all eligible. Educational institutions are eligible, and the federally recognized tribes in Minnesota are all eligible to apply.
I'd be curious about people, if anybody has an idea of what they're thinking about. Is that a lead in, John, for you to kind of, if people have
I would love to hear that. If anybody wants to talk about,
anybody's brave enough to kind of tell us, I'm guessing they're in their very raw stages of thinking about a partnership, but.
And in some ways that's the best time to talk about it. Especially if you don't have another partner yet, just talking about, just throwing ideas up about what might work. We love to give advice about, how you might approach something.
I can jump in if you like. This is Rebecca from Anoka County.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
I guess my hope with using any partnership money would be to kind of skip a lot of the planning step. We've already thought about that for the last 6 months. We've got a program bookshelf of programs that have, we've been using for the last 10 or 15 years that, we just keep updating, but they're in-person programs. And so, creating the partnership with either humans that can do some editing, filming for us, so that we could just crank out some of those programs so they'd be more visually interesting than just standing up in front of a Zoom meeting with a bunch of slides all the time and just recording that.
Yeah. And so, do you have a partner in mind, whether it's a specific other group or?
Well, we currently partner with a couple of the local cable stations, but there are other consultants we've used for digitizing other media before that we could go back to as previously used partners in that respect.
Sure. And yeah, great. So, there's a number of nonprofits that do media work. And yeah, if there's some locally, that's great. So part of it is, if you know that you've got a program already in mind and you just want to film it, maybe animate it, whatever, add elements to it to make it more interesting. It might be easier just to go through legacy grants to get that done, but to do a partnership in that direction, you might want to just sort of, it sounds like you've done a lot of planning already, but you might want to pilot a method, especially if you've got a number of program ideas already. Then make sure you've got a method that's going to work, and then try to put one together and see what you get and see what you learn from it. And your product from that could be, it could be just a set of instructions that everyone involved can use to to make these things happen a little more quickly and smoothly. But there's there's other kinds of products you could come up with for something like that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thanks for talking about it. So Ellen, you're asking, there was an app that was developed in a Heritage Partnership grant. What category would that fit into? And thinking about an app to explore history outside. That's great. I think shared services is probably the best category for it. Again, I don't want to act like those categories are, don't have any boundaries to them. But part of it is you're telling us, like, this is going to be a shared service, program grant for this reason, and so, if you're going to do the work of, of identifying those locations outside that would be part of this app, that could be the research is leading to later developing the app itself. Joe Hoover is not here. He's the staff member who knows the most about developing apps that I know of. I don't know if anybody else who's here today has helped develop apps like this, but anyway, I would say shared services would be the category to look at. All right. Well, thanks everyone who kept it going when I dropped out, and I will try to get this one posted soon. I'll have to see what happened to the recording when it dropped out, but not to worry, we'll get you something. And thanks everyone for showing up. Oh, yeah, you're welcome, Ellen. And yeah, it's past 3, so we'll call it a webinar, and hope to see everyone again in some forum in the future.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks.